This is the $168 Viltrox 40mm f2.5 prime Sony lens, and it's fantastic. Viltrox sent it to me a couple of weeks ago to test and review with my Sony ZV-E1, and honestly I can't find many negative things to say about it, especially considering the price of just $168. It's very compact with fantastic autofocus performance, minimal focus breathing, sharp image quality when shooting wide open, and decent subject separation even for full body shots. I'm actually using this lens right now to film this talking head portion of the video, and I think it works great for that if you're okay with being slightly away from the camera. For me it's not really a big deal because I usually use a 35mm for these kind of shots, and the 40mm is very similar. In some cases it might even be better, as it should look more natural since 40mm is closer to what the human eye sees. But I think if you're just starting out, this focal length is definitely a great option, as it's a bit more versatile than the more popular 35mm or 50mm, and should work well for most applications, including street photography, portraits, landscapes, and natural looking product shots. Now in terms of aperture, this lens can go down to f2.5, which I think is the perfect middle ground between optimal subject separation, good low light performance, and keeping the size as compact as possible. At f2.5 you can still blur out the background and get creamy bokeh, especially if you shoot close to the subject. However, this lens is obviously not going to perform as well as f1.4 or f1.8 lenses in terms of subject separation, but those lenses are usually more expensive and bulkier, which I personally don't like. Anyway, in terms of design, this lens is very minimal. It has decent build quality, with most of the lens made of plastic, though the lens mount is at least metal. It's also very compact and lightweight, only slightly bigger than a typical pancake lens, and weighs just 169 grams. It has no weather sealing, no aperture ring, and no AF/MF switch. However, it does have a USB-C port for firmware upgrades, a 52mm filter thread, and a nice smooth focus ring. Overall, the design is very simple and minimal, but at least you get a metal lens mount. Moving on, the focus strobe is roughly 270 degrees. It has a minimum focus distance of 34 centimeters, and I'm happy to say that it remains sharp at its minimum focus distance, which is not the case with most budget lenses. It also has minimal focus breathing, which surprised me considering the price of this lens. It's almost as good as my Sony 35mm f1.8, and in terms of autofocus performance, I tested it in various conditions and didn't notice any hunting, stuttering, or issues. It switches focus quickly, stays locked on the subject, and performs almost as well as native Sony lenses, except in low light conditions. However, this is the case with almost all third-party lenses, so if autofocus performance is your highest priority, definitely consider buying a native Sony lens for the absolute best results. Now, the only minor issue I've noticed with this lens when it comes to focus is that it produces slight motor noise when quickly focusing from close to infinity. It's very minimal, but if you're using the built-in microphones on your camera for audio, it will definitely pick it up, so keep that in mind before getting this lens. Now, in terms of image quality, I didn't expect much for the price of this lens, but I was pleasantly surprised. It delivers great results, starting from f2.5 with very sharp center performance, minor vignetting, and of course soft corners. Stopping down to f2.8 significantly improves vignetting and sharpness, and at f4 the vignetting is barely visible, with the image being pretty much sharp across the entire frame. In terms of chromatic aberration, it performs very well even when shooting wide open. I compared it to my Sony 35mm f1.8, and from what I could see, it delivers slightly better results, which is kind of shocking. It's also very color neutral. I didn't notice any significant color shifts, and the bokeh performance is decent, but nothing really special. However, its biggest weakness is probably the flare and ghosting performance, which delivers very poor results, especially when backlighting your subject. It's not visible in every case, but when it is, it makes everything look soft and mushy, especially skin tones, but honestly, I wasn't expecting much from a lens at this price point. Overall, I can highly recommend this lens, especially if you're just starting out or using cameras like the Sony a7C, a7CR or the ZV-E1 and want to keep your setup as compact as possible. I think it's a great all-around lens for just $168, delivering excellent image quality, autofocus performance, and subject separation. I'm going to leave affiliated links for it down below, and while you're there, let me know if you have any questions or comments. Thanks for watching.